No one in Montreal expected that Dr. Ewen Cameron would become the center of one of the darkest secret projects of the Cold War. A respected psychiatrist, director of McGill University's Allan Memorial Institute, and at one time president of the American Psychiatric Association, Cameron was celebrated for pioneering research in shock therapies and rehabilitation. But behind his professional standing, beginning in the 1950s, a convergence of fear, funding, and secrecy turned his clinic into an experimental laboratory for the CIA. The context is crucial. In the early 1950s, Washington was gripped by panic over brainwashing. Korean War stories of prisoners allegedly reprogrammed by communist interrogators. The CIA launched
This should cover the
MKUltra
university program.
in 1953.
We expect
under
regular progress
archivists
reports.
of secrecy like Sidney Gottlieb, hunting methods to control, erase, and reconstruct human minds. Much of the agency's work was covertly funneled through front groups, charities, think tanks, and research funds to reputable universities and hospitals. One of those channels led straight to Allan Memorial. Cameron's techniques, called depatterning and psychic driving, promised to erase pathological patterns and build new ones. In practice, they were brutal and experimental.
Are you really able to help
Patients
me?
admitted for routine psychiatric care found themselves dosed with massive amounts of LSD, plunged into prolonged drug-induced sleep for days or weeks, subjected to dozens of electroconvulsive shocks at settings far beyond standard practice, and played repeated taped messages for hours on end. The stated goal was to break down existing personalities and then theoretically remake them. Many patients left the institute with shattered memories, permanent cognitive impairment, and lives that never recovered. Crucially, much of the funding behind Cameron's work did not come from Canadian health authorities or academic grants. The Human Ecology Fund and other intermediaries were used to route CIA money into Cameron's labs without transparent oversight. That secrecy was integral to the conspiracy. The agency's own files later showed deliberate efforts to mask sponsorship and to test powerful drugs and techniques on unwitting subjects, people who trusted institutions to heal them, not to be laboratories for covert Cold War science. The conspiracy began to unravel decades later. In 1973, amid other scandals, the CIA's then director ordered the destruction of many MKUltra files, an effort that obscured the scope of the experiments for years. But survivors, lawyers, and investigative journalists kept asking questions. In 1975, the U.S. Senate's Church Committee and the Presidential Commission
Your Honor,
probed covert.
we have reviewed the medical records. They prove a pattern of negligence. We demand accountability for these survivors.
CIA sponsorship of psychological and chemical experiments across North America. The fallout was wrenching. Former patients and their families sued, alleging that their consent had been absent or coerced, and that treatments inflicted lasting harm. Courts and public inquiries grappled with responsibility. A renowned physician who had contributed to psychiatry's body of knowledge was revealed to have been an instrument of a clandestine program that treated vulnerable people as expendable data points. The scandal prompted renewed ethical standards for research and greater scrutiny of intelligence funding, but it never entirely repaired the lives damaged in the name of national security. The Allan Memorial files and Cameron's name became shorthand.
These are the only pieces I have left.
Paranoia could warp medicine and government. Historians today point to MKUltra as a cautionary tale, a moment when secrecy and existential fear overrode medical ethics, and when institutions that should have protected citizens instead abetted experiments that violated human dignity. The survivors' stories, memory gaps, lost careers, fractured families remain as the most damning evidence that what began as a clandestine search for an edge in geopolitics became a human catastrophe. Decades later, the controversy endures in declassified memos, court records, and scholarly work. The truth that emerged was messy and incomplete, but unmistakable. Under the banner of Cold War necessity, state power reached into hospital wards, and experimentation was conducted behind a veil of secrecy. The consequences were not just for a few patients in Montreal. They were for the idea that public institutions could be trusted to act on behalf of those
We never knew what they were giving us.
Trust is still being felt and reckoned with today.
Secrecy and fear corrupted our institutions. They endangered human very dignity.
We must ensure strict compliance with the new consent protocols.
Will these reforms be enough to prevent another violation?